I feel like I'm afraid to say how I feel, to know I let you down. Cause late nights turn to days, don't wanna let you down. With each breath we give away, it'll never be the same. I'm chasing somebody who won't ever ease the pain, but I don't want half of your heart, heart, heart. You can have it back if it's only half of your heart.
Welcome to the live stream. Hold on one second, guys. Let me stop the music. Stop. Alright, put myself over here. Welcome to the live stream. We're streaming system build number 29. My name is Brian. This is Build It with Brian series, and this entire system is a more advanced system. We're talking about something with more of a graphic card, a little bit higher end graphic card, as well as high-end hard drive. And let's get to the build. Let's go over the parts. Let me bring over the main camera here, not hitting my head. Whoa. All right. Let me just switch over. There we go. It's big. There we go. A little bit of glare. Sorry, guys. I'm still figuring out the lighting around here. So we're going to get around to all the parts. So we have an Intel Core i5 13th gen. It's an i5 13400F. It requires a discrete graphic card. That's why that says there. We're going to obviously put a graphic card in. Hard drive. We have a Crucial P3 Plus, PCI Express Gen 4, which is pretty fast. For RAM, they've got 32 gigabytes, DDR4, 3200 megahertz speed. This is a DDR4 build, not a DDR5. It's fine for what it is. Graphic card, we have a GeForce RTX or NVIDIA graphic card 4060 Ti from GIGABYTE. This card is a half size. It's not a full size card. You'll see when we take it out. Motherboard, we have an H16M S2H V2 DDR4. And yes, that is a mouthful, but that is the model number. And also for power supply, we have an EVGA 650 watt power supply. I'm not sure if this is modular. No, it's not modular. But that's okay, we don't need a modular one, because the case that we're putting this in is an H17, Thermaltake H17, which is plenty big for what we need to do, and we shouldn't have any problem. What else are you going to need? You're going to need a knife, you're going to need a USB flash drive with Windows 11 loaded on it, a screwdriver. You don't have to have an electric one, you can have whatever you want. Some zip ties, cable cutters, and probably a magnetic parts tray. So put that back over there for right now. All right, so we're going to work on the motherboard. First, we're going to do all the small stuff first, and then we're going to go put it into the case and go from there. So let's start with the motherboard, which I just said I was doing, and I did not put that there. Here we go. Motherboard. The motherboard we're going to build right on top of the box. So what's in the box? You're going to have SATA cables. We're not using these today. We have only an NVMe drive, so I'll put that all off to the side. Motherboard itself. The dreaded I/O shield, which is on the bottom. And some manuals that we don't really need. Just going to close that. Bring this down. There we go. Just take the board out. Hold. Come on. Come on. A little worried about the anti-static bag. Just be very careful. The anti-static bag is anti-static on the inside of the bag, but not on the outside of the bag. So be sure to just toss this away when you're done with it and it's out of your way. Okay. So this is the main board. Obviously, I'm just going to go over some of the main parts before we actually install it. Short version, I'm just going to go from top down, and then I'm going to zoom in a little more. So you have power up here, power here. So you're going to have an 8-pin and a 24-pin connector for the power. Your SATA connections, if you have any SATA hard drives, would be plugged in here. USB 3.2. Your I/O for your front I/O panel is going to be over here, which is going to be basically like your, not I/O panel, I'm sorry. Front I/O ports, you're going to have those right here. Another front fan if we have one. If you have a rear fan, you would be plugging into the one that's up here. CPU fan plugs into the one that's gray. RAM sockets, CPU socket, NVMe socket for your hard drive, as well as USB 1 for the front connections, as well as audio for the front connections if you actually want to connect that. We will connect it, but most people should probably not use it. It's kind of garbage. Let's zoom in a little bit here to take a look at the bottom part of the board. More importantly, this portion here is really important, which is going to be your front I/O. It's labeled obviously power LED, HDD LED, power button, reset, etc. All of those things that are LEDs require certain positive and negative connections to make sure that they are following the same one. It says power LED plus negative, HDD plus negative, power says plus negative, but that's not really needed. Also, the reset switch doesn't matter for plus and negative. Moving a little bit further over, obviously your CPU, your system fans have 4 pins. Some have 3. If it has 3, you would be using the first 3 pins there over this one little notch, and it would be facing with the little notch between the 2. So it would slide in place only one direction. Moving further over, USB headers only have 1 missing pin. They are pinned out that way, so every time you plug it in, it'll be pinned out one direction. Communication port, we're not using this. If you have LEDs, there's an LED RGB header right there. We don't have any RGBs, but if you do have an option to plug it in. Moving further over, front panel audio, which is F audio. You can use this if you want. We plug it in just to make sure it's plugged in, but honestly, the front audio is kind of crappy. Moving up a little bit, on the motherboard, you have your graphic card slot, which I'm going to just open up the little lock. That's where we're going to put the graphic card. When we do put this graphic card in, this will lock the card in place. If you have to take the graphic card back out, you will have to push this down first in order to pull the graphic card out. You may need a longer screwdriver to get down there and be able to push that in without damaging anything else. If you do have to push towards the motherboard, be very careful to push very gently. You don't want to end up going through the motherboard with a screwdriver, which I have seen before. NVMe, you have an NVMe socket right here. This is where you're going to be putting your hard drive. You only have one. It's going to lay in between here to here. It has a plastic holder that's going to hold it down. And pretty simple, you just put it on a 45-degree angle when you put it in. CPU socket right here. And your system fan up here is going to probably be for the back. I/O on this motherboard has got plenty. Let's go back this way. Hopefully it'll, there we go. You have yourself PS2 ports if you still have a PS2 keyboard. VGA if you still have VGA. This is kind of a older style here. DVI, I wouldn't say older style, but it's not an older motherboard. It just happens to have more older style connectors. But it also has still HDMI, DVI, HDMI, DVI, and DisplayPort. But we won't be using the onboard because there is no onboard graphics. We're going to be using the graphic cards at this point. So you have USB ports. Black ones are usually USB 2.0. And the blue ones are a little faster at USB 3.2, I think. You get your regular Ethernet adapter, audio, if you care for it. Pretty simple. All right, let's get into actually putting this together. Let's get things out of the box. Let's start with RAM and a hard drive. So we're going to do the RAM first. I'll just take that out. I should not cut towards myself. Nope. All right, this RAM happens to have little plastic covers on them. So you want to take these off before you install the RAM. You're just going to take your nail and just kind of peel it off. If it comes off, there it goes. Just pull that off. You don't want that on the system. It may get hot and become bubbly or stick in the system. You don't want that. So what you're going to do is you're going to put these into the RAM sockets. To put them in the RAM sockets, you're going to open up the sockets first. So spread those apart. Then what you're going to do is you're going to find the notch here, and you're going to line up this notch with this notch on the board. If it would focus, there we go, on the board. And you're going to make sure they're in the same direction, and then you're going to push it down, and it's going to click in place. That's it. And you repeat the process for the second stick. If you have 4 sockets on the motherboard, you want to double check which ones are the ones that are in dual channel mode. Your motherboard will usually tell you on the board which one is going to be dual channel. It's not labeled on here because obviously there's only 2 sockets. So it's already in dual channel mode when you put two RAM sockets in. You should always, with DDR4, you should make sure that you are in pairs for DDR4. DDR5, you should also, but it's not as heavily weighted as DDR4. So garbage, we're just going to put in the recycled area. Throw it in. All right. Moving on, processor is going to go next. I'm just going to open it up. Easy way. Okay. Probably shouldn't leave the knife open like that, but I'm not going to keep folding things and unfolding things. All right, so processor is going to come in a regular box. You got the processor in the clamshell, and you got the heatsink and fan in the other portion. We're going to take out the processor first. Oh, it also comes with a manual and a little badge sticker. We're not going to use this because we don't like putting stickers on stuff. If you prefer the stickers, you could put them on, you know, obviously the front of the cases where they're supposed to go, but we don't do it because we want a clean look for our customers. So, clamshell, this is obviously an Intel Core i5. It's a 13400F, so it's 13 Gen. It has a little arrow. Oh boy. This little arrow in the corner. This arrow in the corner signifies that you need to also match that on the motherboard for the direction of where it goes in the socket. So that should be over here. Yeah, there's the arrow. It's really, really small. Not sure if you can see it, so I'm gonna bring it up. There is a little arrow on the cover. There's also an arrow on the actual metal plate that covers down. So just in case you lose your cover or take the cover out, you'll know which way it goes. To get this open, you're just gonna push down and up to let it go away. And then you're just going to open up the socket as is. You're going to inspect the socket really quickly. Just take a quick look to make sure there's no bent pins. I don't see any bent pins. We should be okay. I don't think. No, there's no bent pins. It's kind of hard to see. The pins are actually on the motherboard for this. This is an LGA socket, so LAN grid array socket, which means that there are pads on this side and there's pins on the motherboard. So on the back of this, you'll see that there are pads. And all those pads will line up with those pins when we push the item down. So we're just going to realign the processor the correct direction. If you noticed, I am holding it on the edges and not underneath. Try to not touch the underneath as much as you possibly can. You don't want to put oil or anything under it. You don't want your fingers, oil from your fingers going on it. It should just drop right into the socket. Again, you can see the little arrow here. There's another arrow there. That arrow is supposed to be all down into the bottom left of the board. This is going to close down. You can leave the cover on it. It will pop off by itself. Just take the cover, put it away, put the latch back down, and that's it. And after you've taken it off, you'll notice that there's still an arrow in the bottom left. So that will still signify there, just in case you already have gotten rid of this. This you should keep just in case you got to return your motherboard or if you have to ship it. This is something that you might want to hold on to. If you've confirmed everything working, you could probably get rid of this. You probably get rid of the garbage on this. Most likely, if you're going to sell this board, you're probably going to sell it with the processor in it. Moving on, you're going to put the heatsink and fan on for cooling. On the heatsink and fan, it does come with pre-applied thermal paste. When you have pre-applied thermal paste, you don't have to put it on, obviously. That's that gray stuff in the middle. That portion is going to come in contact with the middle portion of the processor. If you want to put your own thermal paste, you can wipe this off with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, take that off, and then you would let it dry for a second, and then reapply your own onto the processor if you want to put more extra, or maybe if you want some other type of thermal paste. For this type of cooling, though, it doesn't make any sense to use a really high, expensive thermal paste because it's not going to cool any better than what the heatsink and fan are really going to give it at this point. But you can, you know, I guess you could switch it if you want. So we're going to put this in. When this usually dries up is usually when we replace it, like during cleanings and stuff, we'll usually do a thermal paste check just to see if the temperatures are, I usually do temperature check first. And then if the temperatures are a little wackadoo, then, you know, obviously we check the thermal paste and see if it's become sticky or anything, and we'll just replace it. But that's part of our service when we go to do that. You should do a cleaning every year, but most customers sometimes skip it, or, you know, they just don't have time for it. That's fine. When that happens, you know, that's okay. We could just reschedule it for another time. But we really shouldn't go more than 2 years without just doing a quick check of your thermals and maybe blowing out some dust and seeing if that helps first before changing the thermal paste. What I'm doing here is I'm connecting it down the motherboard. I'm just pushing down opposite corners. So I'm just pushing in one side to this side, to that side, and that goes through the motherboard And on this side, you can see the plastic has come through. If it has not, then it may be off center. You want to make sure that all of those 4 contact points are pushed in before you proceed forward. Now you're going to connect the fan. This fan happens to be a 4-pin. And with the 4-pin, it's going to connect right into the one that says CPU. That's the gray one up here. It only really goes in one way because of this notch. This notch, the little plastic piece on the board is going to slip right between here. So that's going to go up here. Push it down. It should only go one way. If you're pushing really hard and it's not going down, then you know you've got it the wrong way. Maybe flip it over. So this is just gonna, I'm just gonna tuck this cable under here, like just to get it out of the way for now. And probably should just push it down as far as I can get it so it doesn't come out. There we go. So it's just out of the way and cable managed kind of, just want to run the cable management as much as you can. I'm gonna toss some of this plastic into recycling, and as well as the box. We don't need that. We do need the hard drive next, so we're going to pull that out. And let's go forward. All right, what's in the box with the hard drive is very simple, just a manual. It's going to come with the hard drive itself and an extra screw. That screw is not going to be used because our board has a plastic clip down already on it, so it's going to hold it down. This is about the size of a stick of gum, but it's 1 terabyte of data, which is pretty decent. They're making them a little larger now. You can actually get up to, I think, a 4 terabyte, or maybe it's 6, I think. I think they should make a 6 now in this size for NVMe. I'll have to double check. All right, so it's about the size of a stick of gum. What's gonna happen is these pins are going to connect down to this part of the motherboard. That's going to go in a 45-degree angle in this way, which I'll show you in a second. And I'm going to pull the clip up so I can get it in there. And it has a resting post to go on. So you're just going to put it on a 45-degree angle and into the socket. Push it gently down. And you're going to put the holding clip down, push it in, and it stays right in place. Now, this thing is obviously horizontal. You're going to have a little bit of space underneath. This is normal. There should be a little bit of space so that airflow can come underneath it. This is also so that airflow can go over it with no problem. If you have one of these with a heat sink, you may want to make sure that you have proper clearance above, as well as, since this is so close to a GPU where the GPU is going, you want to make sure you have enough clearance between the two. Now, if you have one with a heat sink, you can also probably take the heatsink off. There are options. Sometimes they come with like little screws to take the heatsink off. It's not necessary to have a heatsink. It's just a little more beneficial to pull away the heat, but you don't absolutely need it. It will still run perfectly fine without it. All right, that's it for the motherboard. Motherboard's really simple. I know that sounds like more complicated than it really needs to be, and it isn't. We're just going to take all this stuff, get it out of the way, continuously clean up here. We don't need the manual. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this into the case, and I'm going to put that dreaded I/O shield in there, and we're going to start loading everything up. So I'm going to move this out of the way for now so I don't damage it. Just going to put it off to the side. The new case, graphic card, put that right here. Now, power supply, I forgot about the power supply. So the EVGA 650 power supply, we're going to take that out of the box really quick. Just to go over that before I put it in the system. So 650 watt power supply. Wow, they got a lot of labels here to keep this closed. All right, there we go. All right, so in here, I have a manual. We really don't need a manual for this. Let's open it up. There's, on this side that they taped the 4 screws for the power supply, so you're gonna need those. You're gonna need the power cord eventually. I'm gonna put that off to the side. We're not gonna use that power cord, we have a power cord on the desk. Take the power supply out. Power supply is not modular, so everything is connected to it. Take the box out of here. power supply. On the power supply itself, there's going to be a switch on the back, plug, obviously your fan, it's labeled as 650. Just to double check things, you always want to look at the sticker, and you want to make sure that you're got kind of close to 650 watts here, which we have 624 on the 12 volt rail. That means the power supply continuously combined is 624 watts. So make sure that your graphic card doesn't exceed that, plus your CPU doesn't exceed that added together. We'll make it, you know, how many wattage you need. In this case, is plenty for this graphic card. It's not that high end. It's not like a 4090 or something. So it's perfectly fine. So we're going to cut this off so we can actually get the cables out. And on the cables themselves, got a few different cables here. This is obviously a SATA cable. It's for your SATA connections for like your SATA hard drives or any device that uses SATA power. Other side, oh, a lot of SATA, okay, good. And we got a Molex connector. There's a 4-pin connector. This is really old. This is an older floppy connector, still 4 pins, I think, yeah, 4 pins. Not really used anymore. I don't know why they even still include this. Maybe for some older lighting or maybe LED lighting. Sometimes that's for the Molex. This, for a floppy connector, I don't think maybe just a tape drive. That's it. That's really uses this anymore. So yeah, that's all that for that. Next one, everything's labeled, by the way. This is makes it nice and easy. PCI Express, that's the PCIe that's listed here. This is going towards your graphic card only. Do not plug this into your motherboard. You can accidentally push this into the board. So be sure to always plug in the right one to the right connector. CPU, which looks kind of the same. So that's why I'm going to show this. You'll see that it is still 8 pins, but you'll notice they're split up into 2 like this. This one's split up with 6 and then a 2 that need to be slid together if you want to do 8. But you can see how easily this could be misunderstood and plugged in the wrong way. So make sure that the ones that say CPU, that's going to your motherboard, and make sure you only plug that into your motherboard. Now, going down further, you also have a 24 pin, which you're supposed to put that together. That makes 24 pins. That's the only one for the motherboard. You'll notice it just gets plugged straight into the board. There's only one of them, so you won't have any problem with that. It only goes one direction too, because it has a clip only on one side. That clip will match the little rift that's on there, or a little ledge that's on there. That will, it'll clip onto. So that's it for the power supply. Very simple, very easy. We're going to take the manual out of there. We're going to keep the screws. We're going to put the case up here, and we're going to start working on the case. Let me put this over here for right now. It's just out of my way. Case. Case is a Thermaltake H17. Sorry about the look right now. I got to take the side panels off. I should probably do that before stream. One of these days I'll remember to take the side panels off before we start. Because side panels are not that exciting. It's just plain black. This here. I don't want to put that on the floor. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go over the back side of the case first. Put this downwards. On the back side of the case, it's pretty simple. These are all your front I/O panel connectors, all your cables for that. It also has the cables for the entire system back here, so we're just going to get these out of here. You want to cut these and just get them out. You don't want to use any of these wired type of wire ties, because they have wires in them. You don't want that inside the case. So you want to take those out. You want to use the plastic wire ties that come with it. Plastic wire ties are in this little bag. 1 second. Let's get the bag open. These come with full-size wire ties. There's a few, there's not many, but they are long enough for what we need to do. Screws and everything come with this are very simple. There are a few different ones. They are labeled. First of all, This is a 4-pin speaker. We're not going to use this. That is garbage. If you want, you could plug that in. That makes the computer make that little beep noise when the computer first starts. I find it annoying, so we're not going to use it. It also is used for the beep error codes. If you have a problem, you can plug that back in and listen for the codes to see what happens, and maybe give you a little help on troubleshooting if you have an issue. I don't use it. I usually just kind of guess my way through it. All right, so used for 3.5-inch hard drive. It is labeled for that. We don't have a 3.5-inch hard drive, but we're going to keep it on the side for the customer because I like to put them inside the case when we're done. I zip tie them into the case. Why I do that is so that they don't lose them, and we have them if somebody wants to install a 3.5. Same thing with the 2.5-inch SSD. We don't have any of these, so but just in case they want to upgrade or add something later, they have them. This is all the main screw container that we're going to really use. This has got all the motherboard screws as well as some other stuff. So we're going to just take that, put that over there, open this up, put them all on there. There we go, so we don't lose them. Okay. So to go over a few of these screws really quickly. Ooh. All right. This screw here is just basically for your graphic card or any type of PCIe Express slot that you're going to use. This will be screwed down to the back part of the case to hold the card in position. This also could be this also is the same size as the power supply screws. So just in case you lose a screw, you can use the one that came with the case. Other screws, if I can see them. Yeah. This board happens to use a very, very small screw and very thin screw for the motherboard. Still Phillips on this side, very, very small. It's the only one that's used for this. Those go into the motherboard standoffs. They do give you a few extra standoffs in here. That looks like this. And that is a standoff for the motherboard. They are in black. Some of them come in gold. This one happens to be black. They have to be a certain size and height. Do not mix and match standoffs unless you know they're exactly the same height, or you'll end up with a motherboard that's really wonky in there. And wonky is a technical term. So, you know, not very good. They also come with some fan screws. If you want to add any additional fans, these are for your case fans. They have like a little biting type of thread on there, and that will bite into the plastic that's on the fan itself. That's about it for the screws. So this case is pretty simple. There's not that many different types of screws. We should be good. What we're going to do now, before we get onto the other side, since we have it on this side, I'm going to put the power supply in first. The power supply, this is the bottom of the case. This is where the power supply is going to go. This has a vent on the bottom, so I'm going to take advantage of the vent on the bottom. I'm going to put the power supply with the air to be vented in from the bottom up. Someone said, yeah, laugh out loud, wanky. Yeah, it really is. Sorry, I know it's not really a technical term, but it's there. So this is the bottom of the power supply. You're going to put down here. You're going to put the fan facing down, and the back of the power supply is going to go towards the back of the case. It's where you're going to plug in stuff, where you're plugging in, as well as the power switch. Now down here is a mounting area for a 3.5-inch? Yeah, 3.5-inch. 3.5-inch hard drive. That's where you would put this. It would be able to slide the hard drive right onto the little rails here. Those are what those screws are for. Those are a little longer, so they just slide in place. And you're able to connect your 3.5-inch drives here. If you have SSDs, there's a spot for SSDs. It's actually labeled SSD, so you really can't mess that up. Again, same type of like thing, except it's for a 2.5-inch. So this is 2.5 inches this way. You know, so it doesn't, it's not that different. Just slide in there. If you have it to slide in here, you could put it on the opposite side or on this side. I usually put it on the back side of the case just so that I can run cables that way, and it's a little cleaner on the other side. Doesn't really matter. You can do it on this side or the opposite side. You have 2 of those, and then up here there's just more holes for other cables to fit through with no problem. All right, so let's get the power supply in. This back a little bit. It's gonna be a little tricky to do this direction, but I'm gonna try to do this facing down. All right, power supply. Just keep it flipped off. I'm going to take the fan and push it downwards. So that's going to go straight down. Slide in. Obviously, the screws are accessible from the back. So I'm going to get the screws for this, wherever I left them. Oh, where did you go? Where'd you go? Did I leave them up there? Yeah, I hear them stuck to something. Yep, they're stuck to the case. Okay. Well, at least they didn't go anywhere. All right, so moving on. Let's go and line this up. Let me take the screws out and the screwdriver in place here. These are really stupid bag. All right, there we go. Let me close the knife. Want that open. All right. Okay, so we're gonna just turn this a little bit so I can get into here without having to bend my neck all the way around. That would be helpful. So we're just gonna have to lift the power supply up a little bit. Now, if this is your first time building, you may want to just put the case upwards. I'm not doing that because so you guys can at least see me putting the power supply in. But honestly, it's a much harder way of doing this in comparison to just putting the case upwards. Pull on the screw in, get it held in, and we're just going to screw in the last 3 screws. Once you get the first one, it's pretty easy to get the last of them. Oops, there we go. Okay. Nice and tight, go back over. Just make sure they're all tight. Okay. Now, with this case, you can have the power supply fan facing the other way. If you have the power supply fan facing the other way, it's going to take air from the chamber above it and try to pull it down and out. This is probably a bad idea for this type of case because you are going to suffocate the power supply, but there are some reasons to do that. The only reason I can think of really to do that is if the person has carpet and they can't, it can't pull air from the bottom of the case, then it needs to have it reversed the other way. My opinion though, if you have carpet and you're putting this on carpet, just put a piece of wood underneath it or something, or a piece of plastic underneath it so it stays up and away from the carpet so it can still grab in a bunch of air if you really need to. All right, power supply cables, I'm just gonna tuck them in here for now, but we're gonna use those very shortly after we get the motherboard in. And we're just gonna tuck all this down so it just stays out of the way. I'm gonna flip it over and we're gonna put in the motherboard and move on. Let's get that going. All right, let's flip, here we go. All right, so we don't need that, let's put that down. All right, in the motherboard, other side, this is the motherboard where the motherboard is going to go, obviously. There are labeled 1 and 2, and it says micro ITX and, I'm sorry, mini ITX and micro ATX. Micro ATX is the ones that are numbered 2. All the ones that are 2 should be lining up with the motherboard. I'm going to double check right now. Usually this one is the one that is usually the culprit. That is usually in the wrong place. So we're just going to double check. And on the motherboard itself, ooh, it's a little hard to see there, but these are the screw holes. This is obviously in line with this one, which means that it has to be moved, I think, yeah. Yeah, because if you look at this, sorry about the zooming in and out a little bit, you see these number 2 here, and the 2 down here, that is not in line with each other. This 2 and this 2 is in line with each other. So I have to take this one out, which I'm not going to be able to do with my hands. Let me grab a kit. Now to remove these, you could do 2 things. You could either use pliers, or you could use a little nut driver like this, which will take it out, which we're going to use. We're going to be fancy and use the nut driver. Woohoo, the party's here. Yes, it is. I'm just going to agree with that. Oh, small size. I'm going to agree with it. It's a little hot in here today. Temperature is horrible. All right, so we're going to take this out. It's a little bit of a rush. There we go. Okay, we got it. We're just going to move it up once we get it out. Okay. Move it up one socket and then slide it back in and screw it back down. And that should line up with the other one. And now if you noticed, these two are in line with each other now, which is what we want for the motherboard. And before I forget, because you guys didn't remind me again, I gotta get the IO shield in, so we're gonna do that. I'm gonna do the fun thing about putting the IO shield in. How many times have I forgotten the IO shield? Anybody remember? I count at least twice, I think. And twice I forgot the IO shield. I'm pretty sure. Probably more. All right, so the IO shield is just this stupid little piece of metal, but it is dreadful. And it does have the labels of what everything is, like your PS2 ports, your VGA, DVI, DisplayPort, HDMI, USB, and Ethernet, and some audio. Only 115, are you kidding me? Okay, I'm complaining about like 90-degree weather, and that's 115. Okay, I'm hoping it's a dry heat. It's so horrible, dry heat. It's never a dry heat. All right, so anyway, we're gonna take the IO shield, we're gonna put that in place. That's gonna go into the little, kind of like a rectangle area over here. Just be careful, it is a little sharp, so if you don't know what you're doing, don't try to slide your finger along it or anything, just pop it in place, obviously the right direction. It should only really go in one way. After you've got that in place, you want to kind of take everything out of your way because you're about to put the motherboard in. And of course, something's got to be a pain to not want to stay. There we go. All right, so we're going to take the motherboard. When you get the motherboard, you're going to notice that I hold it by the fan. This is because this is a cheap fan. If you have a really expensive like tower type fan, do not hold it by the tower. It will probably crack the board. It'll probably be too heavy for this. This is why I can do it with this little inexpensive one. But if you do have a tower one, you can just hold it by the sides of the board instead of where I'm holding it right now. So we're gonna slide that in place and line up the screws. It should pop in place. Now with this one, it has little ridges on these screws, the little standoffs. So those little ridges make it a little easier because then you know it pops in place and you know it's already held in. You don't have to worry about trying to like keep playing with it. All right, so screws. Just going to use the same screws like I said before, and we're just going to screw in all the screws. Make sure to count how many screws that you have, and make sure that you have all the same ones for the same standoffs. In this case, it should be 6 in total, and you just repeat the process throughout all of the screws down. This is obviously goes all the way down. If you have a miscount, in other words, if you have, let's say, 5 screws down and you know that you need 6, take the board out. You will probably have it in the wrong spots. One of the standoffs are in the wrong spot, and you don't want to turn the machine on with a standoff in the wrong spot. You could short out the motherboard. It hasn't happened. I haven't had anybody do that recently, but you know, it could happen, so just be very careful. Repeat the steps all the way through, just keep screwing everything down. So you're done. Our next step is going to be plugging in the case fan because it's in a spot that's a little hard to get to. All right, so that's all screwed down. Just give it a little wiggle to the board. See if you can't move around, that's fine. So we're gonna plug in the case fan. Why we're gonna plug in the case fan? Because the system fan connector is way up here, and if I start plugging in all this other stuff, it's gonna get buried. So let's do it now before it makes it too hard. It's not going to get that buried. You could probably still grab it. Take this out. You're going to untie those. You don't want to use the metal ones. You just use the plastic ones if you want to put cable ties on this, which we may end up doing. I don't know. There's really no good way of doing this. Let's see if I can try to hide it. Try to hide it this way. This might work. I forget what I usually do for the H17. I think I hide it along the top fan. And there we go. Yeah, and then just kind of push that out of the way there. All right, so that's a little better. Yeah, not very happy with it, but it's close enough for right now. I might tie that down a little more. I'm gonna have to put another cable there anyway for the power. Let's get all the I/O connected. Then we're gonna put the graphic card in last, just because the graphic card kind of covers all the sockets down here. So we're just gonna grab all the cables from the opposite side and plug everything in. Let's see. Yeah. All right, so let's flip this back over. Carefully. Okay. Now at this point, what you want to do is separate out some of these cables and start getting things in the right spots. So we're going to take all the thick cables. I'm going to separate them from the thinner cables, just because it's easier. Because the thinner cables all go one direction, all the thick cables pretty much go the same direction. They don't all go the same direction, but they're almost the same way. So just pull all these cables out. Don't pull too hard, just, you know, sort them. And I'm going to use some cable ties wherever I left them. Over here. Yeah. We're not going to go down the center. We're going to go this way. Yeah, we're going to go that way. But let's tie it up anyway. Let's just tie everything up first. You want to use a few more cable ties? That's fine. You know, you're not going to come in here very often, and you want to make sure things are nice and tidy, because it will make it easier to clean later. If you have all the cables nice and tidy, it makes it a little easier to get the dust off of them, because then they're just a big bunch of cables instead of having to clean each cable individually. Let's tie this down. I'm going to need a lot more cable ties, I think. All right. That's all right. If anybody knows me by now, I use like 1.5 billion more cable ties than I really need to. But I like to keep things very organized, and it makes it a little easier usually for cleanings, as well as just keeping things like determining if something is broken or having a problem. You kind of know a little bit right offhand that something is up when you can easily see it. When there's cables all over the place, it makes it a little difficult to see if something's unplugged or, you know, not supposed to be in an area that it's supposed to be in. So we're going to cut all these really quickly, cut all the tails. And get those off before I run the wire all the way down. Be careful not to clip the wire, obviously. Smaller types of cable cutters are usually better for this. I like this, like, what is this? I think this is an 89858. I don't know what the hell that is. Probably a 1/2 inch. I don't know. 1/2 inch cable cutter. It's not that hard. It's pretty easy to use. All right, so the front panel connectors are going to go up and underneath the board. So that's this hole down here, right by the power supply. That's going to go right there for the front panel connectors. How I know this is because I was looking on the other side before I pushed this through, before I flipped over the case, so I kind of know where things go. But if you don't, you would just compare to both sides and see which one is closer. This is going to go up here for the motherboard for the 3.0. You have your HD audio and USB connectors. That's HD audio and USB. That's going to go up into this little area here. It's a little hard to get at. I'll just kind of feed that in there. Just push them as far over as possible. You're going to pull them back later, so it really doesn't matter right now. Just push them all the way in. And we're going to put the 24 pin from the power supply I'll take a few cables out of here. CPU, you're gonna find the one that's CPU and you're gonna find the one that's 24 pin. Down to the board. Come on. I usually untangle them a little bit so that makes this a little bit easier when it goes across. Sorry about all the noise. This is really tangled. I didn't realize how tangled I made this. All right. This one. Did I get this one out at least? Yeah, I got that one out. All right, that one's out. And then I want the 24 pin and the 8 pin. There we go, 8 pin. 8 pin has got one over it. So what I want to do is get, if you look here, can't see. There we go. If you look here down here, if you notice I got everything by itself pretty much. I got one wire that's obviously being a pain. It should be this way. There we go. So this 24 pin and the 8 pin are separated. Why I do this is just so that the cables go a little bit smoother in, but it doesn't really matter too much. You can leave this a mess and fight with it if you want, but this case is also very tall, so you have very little room for that 8 pin cable to get all the way up there. You want to pull that, just push that through. Same thing with the 24, push it through where it's going to go. Just push it all the way through for now. Again, we're going to tie this up in a few more minutes when I plug everything in. Ties make it easier to determine what it is and what it isn't, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's very simple. We're also going to need one for the PCI Express for the graphic card. So that's the one that was labeled PCIe. And we're going to put that up and through the bottom here because that is for the graphic card. And the graphic card kind of lines up over here somewhere. So if I don't make a mistake here and try to feed this through without a problem, it's a little tighter spot, but it's all right. Get that in there, get in there, okay. Just push it all the way through for now. Again, we'll pull everything back once we figure everything else out. Now, all the other cables that we don't need, we really should just, at this point, bundle them up a little bit here, like this. Bundle them up nicely. And I'm going to use more cable ties, which I had on the desk over here somewhere. There we go. Black ones. I try to match black with black at least. They don't have to be exactly the same. Actually, no one's going to really see this. You could put white in here, it's fine. Or clear. Just pushing these together and combining two. Tying them up. I'm trying to get them down to a very small size so it fits nicely on the bottom. Also, the more tight that you put this, I wouldn't say like extremely tight, but just tight enough so that it compacts the cables down a little bit. This does help with cleaning later because you won't get so much dust in between the cables. That's the objective. So you don't want to get like little dust bunnies stuck in here. That's bad. You want to make sure that there's no real room for a dust bunny to get in there. Then it makes it a little easier to clean. Cut these up. Watch your fingers and watch the cables. Be sure not to cut any of the cables. Be sure not to cut your finger. I mean, that's kind of common sense, but you never know. All right, so that we're just going to tuck down below for right now. We're not going to tie this down right now. We're just going to put it down here for now, just bundled up. I will tie it down when I'm completely done. With the rest of the build. So I usually go to the back and do all the back stuff, all the back work here for tying down last. All right, so let's flip this over and let's start plugging things in. So you want to hold those cables in, make sure they stay. Hopefully they will when you flip it over. Now, by the way, if you're building for your first time, you probably should build this more like horizontal, more vertically. Upwards, because you don't want to have to keep flipping this over and over and over again. I'm just doing this for the camera. Honestly, I usually build upwards. It does save a lot of time and a lot of effort. So we're just going to make sure all the cables came through, which they did, and I'm just going to line up the 24 pin right into the 24 pin socket on the board. If I can see what I'm doing, there we go. It should click in place. Once it's down, it should click in. Might have to give it a little bit of force, but you know, you shouldn't have to give it too much force. Use the force. All right. CPU, just plug the CPU in, same thing. You want to make sure to line it up the correct direction with the ridge, and then plug both of them in, hopefully at the same time. There we go. And make sure they're all the way down. Plugged in. Once they're plugged in, you'll hear a little click. That's normal. Same thing for USB 3.2, which is the only one that's this blue connector. And it only goes one way into the board. It has a little notch here. That little notch lines up with the notch that's in the board. That's in the connector on the board. Now, this also has a problem taking this out. If you have to take this out, you may need a knife or a little like thin Phillips screwdriver to get this out, because this will take the board off. Like if you pull this off right now, like if I plug this in and just try to pull it off with my hand, it will actually take the whole connector off the board. You might have to use like a thin knife to get it, or a nice thin like screwdriver to get in there to kind of take that out, if you have to pop that out. Hopefully you won't, but if you have to like upgrade your case or change your case, just be careful pulling this back out. Make sure that the connector stays down to the board. All right, next we're going to connect all the front panel connectors. These you won't really be able to see very good. So basically, you know, they say they do label reset switch, power switch. The ones that are LEDs have plus negative, very small. I don't know if you can see that, but it's plus negative. And same thing for the power, it has plus and negative. So we're just gonna plug these in down there. It's really hard to see. That's why I showed it to you guys before I went down and put this all into the case. So we're just gonna line them up the same way, HDD plus negative. I don't think there's a reset, no. There's no reset. Just power switch. Oh, there is a reset. All right, this case has a reset, so I'll put the reset on. Okay. Get on there. I missed the pin. Power light, do positive, negative, same thing. All of the LEDs make a difference. The switches don't. Okay, positive, negative. And we're just going to plug in your USB, front USB. It's notched out, like I said before, so it only fits one way. Plug it in. It doesn't matter if it's on the 1 or the 2 socket. There are 2 options for that. It doesn't really matter which one. They both are enabled on the BIOS, so plug them both in. That's it. Plug in the audio, same thing, it's notched out the same way. After you've got everything plugged in like this looks pretty good. PCI Express obviously is for the graphic card. At this point, we can kind of push these cables back a little in its sockets here, just to get them out of the way, especially the ones on the bottom. The ones on the bottom are the ones that we really should push out. Someone asked, what will the blue plastic, the connector for USB 3.2 for the front part of the case, if that blue connector, if you pull that out from the board right now, I'm not going to pull it out from the board right now because I need a thin screwdriver, but when you go to pull this out, you got to be very careful to not pull it off the motherboard. Like actually the whole plastic will come off with the board, and that would be really, really bad. So it'd be really hard to put it back on. In fact, most people can't get it back on, and then you won't be able to use your front USB ports that are up here by the power button. That's what it's really used for. So graphic card's next. So let me put the graphic card, let me get the graphic card out. Did I even get the graphic card out? No, I did not. All right, graphic card. What's in the box for the graphic card? Very simply, the graphic card. So that's not very exciting, I know. The only thing that's really in here is just the graphic card. I don't think there's really much else. Now, there's a little manual, but they don't come with anything else nowadays because there's nothing else for it to come with. So just the graphic card itself. Not even a driver anymore because the driver you download. Open this up. Obviously the anti-static bag, you take it out of the bag carefully. That's the side. the back part of the graphic card. Front part of the graphic card has 2 fans. Turn it right side up. There we go. Also, it has ports in the back. Ports obviously are DisplayPort. It's got 2 of those and 2 HDMI. I like this graphic card because it comes with even ports. It comes with 2 DisplayPort and 2 HDMI. That is kind of like the de facto connection, the best connection you can get for that, just for any new monitor, because most monitors that are new now have DisplayPort or HDMI or both, and this will allow you for multi-screen very easily. So as long as they have a kind of a newer monitor that's connecting to this. If not, then you're gonna have a conversion cable, and that's gonna suck, but you know, it'll still work. So on the connection side, this is gonna be an 8-pin, obviously. And for the bottom, you'll see that there's the PCI socket. It is covered. You have to take this off before you put it in. So just slide that little cover off. Put that off to the side if you need it later. Again, these covers, I'm gonna take these off for right now, just so I can get it into the board, but usually we put these back. These cover the ports. I'm just gonna leave those. I put them back because it covers up the dust area, so these don't get really all that dusty. You'll be surprised where dust happens to go. It'll go into these ports, and then you'll have a hard time plugging one in later, and or maybe having some issues having to clean it out manually, which that requires a lot of patience. And it's easier just to put the piece of plastic back in, so you don't have to worry about that. Now I'm going to put this off to the side for a second because I got to prep the case a little. So I'm going to put this off to the side over here. Case, I'm going to have to unscrew this little stupid metal thing and get this out of the way. This little metal thing is rather annoying. And we're going to have to take out 2 sockets because I think this is it's a 2-socket. 2-socket graphic card. It's going to line up with the top ones, so we're going to take this out. If you're unsure, you can just find out where the top part of this one lines up with whatever is lined up in the back part of the case. That's the first one, and then one down below it. So if you want to know which one it lines up and which one you have to take out. If you're unsure, you can also just take all 4 of these out. It's just to help with dust, really. It's not really anything, very special over here. So you take those out. These are obviously port covers. You want to hold on to these, keep them off to the side. Just in case you take the graphic card out or something, you don't have a hole in your case. I'll move this down here out of the way. So I'm going to line up the graphic card with the slots. Going to make sure that it's fully lined up. I can't see what I'm doing on that side, so we hope that it's lined up. No, I'm just kidding. We should check. So I'm going to take a quick look, and it is. It's lined up. So we're just going to slide it down into place. You should hear a click. That should be the little locking mechanism. Should push up, and it should lock the card in place. So now the card's kind of locked in place. But I'm going to screw down anyway the front panel. Yeah, the back panel, I'm sorry, not the front panel, what am I talking about? The back panel, I'm just going to screw that down really quick. There we go. Now this metal piece to put back in sometimes will go, and sometimes it's not going to go for me. I'm not really too concerned about this because this thing doesn't really serve much of a purpose, not for this type of system. Now, when is this really important? Right now, it's not that important because this card is very, very small. It's not a very long card. If you have a very long card, you'll want to put this back because this basically allows for a little more structure on the card itself to allow it to hold it upward so you don't get that GPU, what they call GPU sag. GPU sag is a real thing. It's a really annoying thing, but it does happen, and when it does happen, you'll end up with this like bent card, and you could hurt your card or damage the card if that's the case. I'm going to try to get this in here without killing anything or breaking my butt about it, but honestly, I don't see it going out. I usually just put this down at the bottom of the case and I zip tie it if I can't get it back in there, just in case they decide to upgrade a card. There is a way to get this in here with that if you want to slide this upwards and then slide it along the case. I don't want to keep doing that because it wastes time over like a little bit of like extra airflow, which is not a problem. Without that, it's not going to really help anything or demand, it's not going to really destroy anything by leaving it out. So I'm going to just leave it out. This is an 8-pin, so I'm going to combine these together is the one that says PCIe. Make sure, re-verify that you're using the one that says PCIe and not CPU. You want to push those together and line them up. Sometimes they're a little hard to line up. There we go. Let me get them there. Once they're lined up and pushed together, you got to hold them and you got to slide it into the socket at the same time and have it click. They should go all the way down. If you're not sure, check this side and make sure that the connection is all the way down. Make sure they're all seated down. You just don't want to have that coming off, because if you do, could be a problem. Could shock the graphic card, or you can have a little fire. So just be very careful with these wires. This is not the connector that always goes on fire, by the way. It's just that if you don't line them up, you have some issues. But they never really went on fire. It's the other connection that from NVIDIA, the other newer connector, that's kind of very weird and horrible. So we're gonna just tie this up now at this point. We're gonna pull the cables back down and out of the way. So I'm just gonna tie this other little thing in here really quickly. And we're gonna start pulling cables from the other side so they're nice and tight. Okay, and then we're gonna tie everything down. So this cable is not gonna stick up like this. We're gonna pull that out back from the other side. We're gonna flip everything back over, and we're gonna start tying things down after we've pulled the wires tight, or taut, if you want a better word for it. So, all right, here we go. So let's start with the upside here, the CPU side, the motherboard. And we're going to just tie it down to the board at the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push this and bend it a little bit so it's a little bent. It's going to go under the little eyelet, or in other words, tie down point, for it to go down into, and it'll make it a little easier to get it around and out the other side. Just tie it, pull it taut, and then pull this taut. Get down there. There we go. And then you're just going to follow down on the eyelets all the way down with little anchor points. Same thing. Bend it. Slip it underneath. Go back around. All right. Again, you're going to repeat the steps all the way down. I know this sounds kind of boring, but it is very necessary to do now so you can keep it, nice and cable managed. If you change your parts a lot, you may not want to do this. You may want to keep a few more things free. Graphic card wise, if you change your graphic card a lot, which is usually what most people do, if you're changing your graphic card a lot, you may want to leave those a little more loose so you can just kind of move them around a little. For the PCI Express one. This is for the motherboard. Most people don't change their motherboard and processor very often, so you should be fine. These cables you want to just pull through as much as you can. Again, don't pull too hard. Just pull until it's, just barely, it's giving you a little bit of pushback. Don't yank on the cables. You don't want to do that. Don't want to yank your cable. That's bad. I know that didn't sound right, but you know what I meant. Don't yank your cables. Just give them a nice little pull. All right, let's scoot down, cut that. All right, so that one's in place. These cables are kind of down in place. I'm gonna pull that out this way so it goes away from this. These are just gonna pull back a little bit because those are the ones that have a lot of extra slack. So let's pull that this way and pull that down. There's many different ways you can tie this down. I'm doing it my way. You can do it a whole different way if you want. You don't have to do it my way. If you find a better way of doing this, please do. Please do it. It's fine. It doesn't really make a difference. Just as long as it's kind of an organized way, it's fine. Yeah, you know what? These are a little too thick for this. another double. Alright. Once that's nice and tight there, you're going to probably tie it down to one of these anchor points. I'm going to find one that is close enough. And, you know, let's see. One that's close enough. That's not really close enough. You know what? None of these are really close. So we're just going to leave it. Yeah, we're going to leave it. So we'll pull this down that way. Yeah, it's like right here. That's right there. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to actually tie it to one of the, because this inlet is a little too far. That one's a little too far that way. We kind of went in the middle here. That's fine. It doesn't really have to be on it. It's just enough to make sure the wires are all tied together. It's not really about tying it to the case. It's more about tying it down and just keeping it away from, you know, fans or anything else. And that's more than what it's doing right now. So this is fine. Cables are pushed down. And that's pretty good. I wouldn't go any more than this right now. I think that's probably fine. This is okay. And I wouldn't go any more tying down than that. At this point, this is okay, because I can still reach below this. I can still reach into here below this, so if I need to put a hard drive in, or if I need to put all the rest of these other things in, like all the screws and extra components, I can put that all down at the bottom and screw it down to the bottom, tie it to the bottom. That's it. If you want to tie these, you can tie these down. You can go this direction if you want. I'm going to just check the PCI Express, which I forgot to pull down, so we're just going to have to tie that. I forgot about that one. So let me just tie that really quick. I just realized I didn't pull that wire. That should be good, yeah. I'm just going to double check on the other side to make sure I didn't hit a fan. On this side, the panel is going to lay flat, so you're going to still have a lot of room here. You're going to have a little bit of space between here and there. So this is okay to be a little bit up. That's fine. When you put the cover case on it, it'll still push it down and it'll still look good from both sides. So looking at the other side now, you'll see all the wires have been pulled nice and taut. So you'll see that one's all the way back. This is all the way down. This one's all pushed back. Just want to make sure that this clears the fan. You don't want to pull this into the fan. So this fan is moving with no issue. This fan over here is moving with no issue. It's not touching anything. That's all together. So we're ready now at this point to give it a boot test. So we're going to do that. Yeah, let's flip back to my other camera. Hopefully if it's on. No, it's not on. Why would it stay on? This happens every time. Anybody know how to keep a camera like a Sony ZV-1 on all the time? It's always a pain. It keeps turning on and off by itself. And it has full power, which is weird. It doesn't have a battery. It's plugged directly into AC and it just doesn't want to stay on. Anyway, all right, so let's go back to this. There we go. Look at that lovely camera. All right, let's get that out of the way for a minute. I'm just going to put this up and let's connect up the motherboard. I mean, connect up the keyboard, mouse, everything else that we need. Get this out of the way. It's hot here today. All right, so what do we need? Let's see. We need HDMI right now because that's what I've got for capture. So we're going to do that. Into an HDMI. If I can get it in there, there we go. HDMI, I need a keyboard and mouse. Mouse, keyboard. There we go. Little mini keyboard. This is for testing. I think this goes to that port. There we go. That's there for right now. Mouse, same thing. I'm also going to plug in the USB flash drive that I have. I am not plugging in the Ethernet. There's a reason. I don't want to make a Microsoft account, so we're going to avoid that with by not plugging in the internet and having a USB flash drive that is configured not to use a Microsoft account. Where did I put that flash drive? Basically, where I put that? Oh, there it is. Flash drive. Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna plug that in. This is a flash drive, just cheap flash drive that I have for loading the Windows. Nothing very special. All right, power. If we got power, let me put power in. Do enough room here, hopefully. Oh, really? Okay. I gotta really reorganize this studio. It's like everything's a mess. Look at that, I'm not shaking the screen. Oh, it's horrible. How are you guys putting up with me? All right, so let's move this a little bit. A little more away, here we go. All right. Yay. All right, so let's do that. Okay. Hopefully, I turn this on. There won't be too many problems. Let's turn this on. Now, normally what I would do is I'd have the system downward so I can actually see like everything that's going on. But, I'm pretty sure the fans are moving. We hope. All right, BIOS should come up sometime soon. There we go. So we're gonna jump into the BIOS. Now, in the BIOS, we got a few things that we want to check right off the bat. We're going to check the CPU temperature, which right now is at 34 degrees Celsius. That's probably about fine because it's really burning hot in here right now. System temp is at 32 also, which is fine. Well, 34, 32, it's fine. We're not going to make many changes here. Why? Because we're going to reflash in the BIOS, so it's going to lose all the changes anyway. That doesn't make any sense. So we're not going to make any changes yet. We're just going to go right to QFlash, and that's the reason why I plugged in that flash drive. That flash drive has the newest BIOS, and make sure that we load the newest one. We are on F29 for the BIOS, which I'm reading over here. This is the right motherboard. This is the proper processor, right amount of RAM. Let's see if we have a new one. I think we have a new one. Update BIOS. We are on F29. I'm just going to flash it anyway just to show the process, if it lets me do it. And normally you don't have to do this if it's already the same. But in this case, I'm surprised that it's the same. But we're gonna start it anyway. We'll do it. It'll reboot, and then it's gonna start flashing the BIOS. During this process, you shouldn't really flash the BIOS if it's the same BIOS. That doesn't make any sense to do that. Normally, if there's an upgrade, that's the time to flash it. And you only want to flash the BIOS when, there's obviously a new one. And you also want to do it when there's no like electrical storm happening or anything like crazy like that. You want to have something where it's going to have constant power. Because with constant power, you'll be fine. If this power is off right now during this BIOS update, we will have a really bad day. Now that went really quick because there was nothing to change. So, but if there is something to change, it would take a little longer than that. It'll also reboot a few more times to get it to go through everything. I'm going to hit delete now and go back into the BIOS. So we're going to set up the BIOS really quick, and then we're going to start loading up. Windows. When's that boot once? Okay, I don't know what they're doing. All right, so let's go through the BIOS. I like to go to advanced mode. I really don't. The only thing I'd like to turn on is resizable bar here. Everything else I just kind of leave alone, and I just go to advanced mode to get everything else to go. I'm going to turn my face off of here just so we can see everything. And we're going to bring the keyboard down. Okay. You can use the mouse or the keyboard. I'm just going to use the keyboard because I'm just more used to that. Default, CPU upgrade. We're not changing really any of this except for XMP profile. We're going to turn that on. We're going to enable profile 1. It is 3200 megahertz. It did pick up the correct RAM, which is good. I go to advanced memory timings just to be sure that there's nothing funky going on here. Leave it on auto is fine. For Gigabyte, leave it on auto. If you have an Asus motherboard, I would recommend being careful with that. Asus likes to do a little bit more overclocking and stuff by itself. So if you're going to do that, I would probably consult the manual and not leave it on auto and actually figure out what your voltage setting should be and all that stuff. So you might want to fix that on your own. Or choose just, really conservative aspects. I go into the advanced. I just want to make sure everything looks good. Everything looks here like it's fine. There's nothing really funny. No. I'm looking for thoughtful power. No, I'm not really changing much in here. I/O ports, I usually just make sure PCIe Express slot 1 is for it because we have a graphic card. I also want to jump down, make sure that resize bar is on, just because that does help with the graphics. If you have an Intel graphic card especially, you need that on. There's no other choice. With NVIDIA, you can leave it off still, and it still will work. It's just not great. App Center download and install configuration, just take that off. You want to disable that piece of junk. It tries to load all this other garbage on your system if you leave that on. And it'll keep prompting you, so just turn it off. We're going to load the drivers manually. So Super I/O configuration, we're going to turn off the serial port because there's no need. We are not using it. USB, just probably leave it alone. Seems like it's fine. Network stack, probably nothing really to change here. NVMe, just make sure to go in here and make sure your hard drive is listed, which it is. If you want to do a test on the drive, you can do a full test. We're not going to do that because it takes forever. And there's no real reason to do that on stream. We usually do it after. SATA ports, we leave them enabled even if we aren't using them. I don't disable this because eventually a customer may want to add a hard drive or something. You may want to keep this on just so they can plug it in and make it work without having to go into the BIOS. VMD menu, just leave it the way it is. I don't set the date and time. I just move over to boot, and I make sure that we're on booting for the Kingston drive that I have, which is the flash drive. Now, it says Windows 10, but there's no other option, so Windows 10 is fine. We're going to go to Save Settings and Exit, and it's going to boot off of that flash drive that I created that has Windows 11 on it, with the setup files for Windows 11. We're going to do an installation without a Microsoft account. You can do it with a Microsoft account if you want. If you do it with a Microsoft account, you'll have to sign up. You'll have to have the Ethernet connected or some sort of Wi-Fi connected for that to work. Now, if you noticed, I changed the XMP profile. This is going to take a little longer to boot. It has to go through what they call memory training. And it's going to take a little while for it to boot longer for this first time. This is normal. If it fails, then you want to resort back with the XMP off. And maybe your memory may not be able to support it, or maybe your motherboard may not be able to support it. Usually it's a memory problem. At that point, you'll want to probably return your memory and get newer memory that may not maybe be able to support the higher speed. This is taking a little while. I am very impatient. This is all in. Yes. We'll see if XMP works. If it doesn't, then we're going to have to reset the BIOS, which will not be fun. I feel like maybe this might be a little too long. Yeah. It probably doesn't want to do XMP. Or it found the wrong memory timings. You might have to go back and reset the memory timings. I think I might have to do that. Yep. This happens once in a while. This is okay. If it goes this long, this is way too long. I don't think this is, memory timing is not correct. This is way too long, I think. I'll give it an extra few seconds just to be sure I'm not going crazy. No, lights are not showing. We're going to flip it back off. Give it a sec. It may reset the BIOS for us, knowing that the memory timings are wrong. But if not, then I'm going to have to reset the BIOS manually. What I did was just flip the full power off, power back on, and we'll see if it comes back on correctly. If not, we'll have to reset the BIOS, which will be a little more of a complicated thing. It's not that complicated. There we go. We're back in. Okay, so it probably failed the memory timings, which is weird because it actually took. This is what I'm talking about, memory timings. It's very weird. Anyway, it's on auto. It's on 3200. We're going to leave it on. Let me go back. Let's reboot again and see if it stays. And it should boot to Windows 11 at this point. It should boot off that flash drive. I'm not going to push the delete key. I'm just going to leave it go. It should boot right into loading Windows. There we go. I think it sometimes with this memory training, you have to also sometimes flip off the power. I've noticed this has been one of those weird things. It depends on the motherboard. And I forget which motherboard does what every time. There's just so many different little quirks. Or is it not handling it? There we go. Come on. Is that flash drive really slow? I don't think it's handling this memory time. No, it's going. This feels like it's a little slower than normal. I could be wrong though. All right, so you're going to choose your language, choose your time and currency format, choose your keyboard and layout. That's fine. Hit next. I'm going to choose install. For the operating system, we're going to do 11 Pro. I always like doing Windows 11 Pro. You can do Windows 11 Home if you want to save a few bucks. I'm going to say I don't have a product key because I do have a product key, but obviously I don't want to share that with the stream. So we're just going to say I don't. We're going to do a Windows 11 Pro. Avoid all the ones that say N. N is not what you're looking for. You're looking for the regular Pro. Hit next. You're going to agree to the terms and service because you literally have no other choice. Hit next. Choose custom, not upgrade. We're going to, obviously there's nothing on the drive. I don't know why upgrade's available. Custom, we're going to choose the hard drive that's in there. Now, if you have 2 hard drives at this point, you may want to unplug your data drive. If you have a data drive, let's say, or a data partition, you may want to make sure that you're selecting the right partition. In this case, we have nothing on the drive and there's only one drive. So we're just going to select that one drive and we're just going to make it all one drive. Now, at that point in that page, you could have created a partition. If you wanted a separate partition, some people like to make 2 partitions. They like to have a C and a D. If you only have one drive, this doesn't make any sense really at this point in time. You're better off just making the whole thing one big drive. If you're doing a data drive and you have a second drive, you could also format it when you get into Windows and do it that way, which is probably a better choice than wasting your time at this screen. You can always partition it later. You would use disk management to do that when you get into Windows. All right, this is going to go through. It takes a little while. Again, I don't have the internet connected because obviously I don't want to do a Microsoft account. I also have a special INI file that's loaded on there that allows me to say, I don't want to do a Microsoft account, and it bypasses that. We have other videos with that and how to create that. So you can always go over there if you want to create that disk. I say disk, but it's flash drive. See how old I am? Disk. Oh, dating myself here. All right, this is going to go through. It's going to say checking for updates, but obviously the internet's not connected. So it's not going to really do it at this point, which is fine. The Ethernet adapter will not be loaded anyway because this Ethernet adapter I don't think automatically loads. If it does, that'll be a miracle. Come on. This process does take a little bit of time. It's got to copy everything from the flash drive over to the main drive, decompress it, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of time that this takes, so we just wait for it to go through. And eventually, sometime today, it will go. I think I had this plugged into the wrong USB port. I think I have it on the USB 2.0. It feels so slow. Yeah, I probably do. We'll know when we get into Windows. All right. Now, during this time while it's doing all of this, you can close up the case if you wanted to, but I would wait until you get into Windows before you close everything up. I usually like to do the last minute checks and everything when the machine's off. And I like to kind of like, fiddle with all the wires to get all the wires correctly done. And then I put the case cover on, screw all the screws in, wipe it down, clean it off, and get it ready for delivery after that. I like to do that last, but you could technically do it at this point. Since the system did boot, you really have no reason to go back into the system at this point. Yeah, I got this plugged into the wrong USB. That's what I do here. Yeah, I plugged it into the USB 2.0. That's why it's going slow. That's all right. We'll wait a little bit longer. '93. Come on. By the way, all the links for all of this hardware is down in the description. I don't get affiliates or any of those type of crappy links or anything like that. That is a straight up link to whatever the product is. You're welcome to use those if you want any of these parts, if you want to build the exact same system. Everything that's down there, is all legit. You just click on it, you buy it. Windows 11, same thing. You know, I think it's from Newegg that I have listed there, so you can buy an OEM version of it. And you can buy the OEM version safely with all this hardware because you're buying new hardware. It is still licensed correctly. So you get a little discount by buying it that way. Well, it's going to get ready. It's going to go through its little setup here. It's going to reboot a few times. This is normal. It says getting ready. Obviously, it goes through this. Then it's going to say, this is basically looking at all the hardware. It's looking at all the parts in the system. It's trying to load basic Microsoft drivers so you can get into Windows and get into the what they call an out-of-box experience. And once you're in the out-of-box experience, you'll have mouse control and all that returned to you. Come on. Yeah, it's going to reboot one more time after this too. So I wish I plugged it into the USB 3.0 port. I'm making that mistake by playing the 2.0. It takes a little longer. It's all right. This will reboot one more time. Then it should say getting things ready and going through all that lovely stuff. Actually, it doesn't say getting things ready. I think it goes right into out-of-box experience, and then it does that after. All right, here we go. Now we're booting up the hard drive. If you notice the Gigabyte motherboard, it automatically switched to booting off the C drive. If it goes back into the Windows setup, like the Windows blue screen setup or that purple screen setup, that means that you're booting off the flash drive still, so you have to go back in the BIOS and change it. Gigabyte's nice, it automatically switched for us. We didn't have to go back to the BIOS. It automatically switched to the Windows Boot Manager. Now here's the out-of-box experience. It's going to ask you a bunch of questions. You just answer the way you would normally answer them. Country, we're in the United States. US keyboard, yes. We're going to skip adding a second keyboard, but if you have a second keyboard, this is where you would add it. We're going to say and lie, we don't have internet. So we're just going to say I don't have internet. We're going to continue with limited setup, which basically means a non-Microsoft account. It's going to ask for a local user account. We're going to just put B1 for now, just to make it simple. Password. You should enter a password here. I'm going to leave it blank because we're just loading up the system, but we would normally set a password. It's going to say, hi, we're setting things up now for you, getting things ready for you, blah, blah, blah. This is just going to take forever, so just be patient. There's no progress bar here. It's just going to do this little blue bubble thing walking around the screen kind of thing. That's all it's going to do. Don't turn off the computer. Literally means just don't turn off the computer. Nothing really. Just follow the on-screen instructions kind of thing. If you're into yellow brick roads, you would follow that. Come on. All right. Getting there. At this point, I'm just going to check to make sure the lights are working, which they are. The power light, which is over here, which you really can't see on camera, but there's a power light on the button. There's also a hard drive light, which just blinked red, which is fine. It means it's reading. Reset button, I'm not going to test right now. But I usually do test the reset button. I do test the USB ports in the front. To test the reset button, what I'll do is I'll usually go into the BIOS, just get into the BIOS screen, then hit reset. You shouldn't really do a reset while you're in Windows. That's probably a bad idea. So you don't want to crash Windows. But you can't really crash the BIOS. So if you're in the BIOS, you can just hit reset to test it. All the flash drives in the front I usually test also. I test each port to make sure it all works. I also test the audio port for whatever dumb reason that anybody would use that. If you noticed, when you click start, a lot of things are missing here. That's okay. We haven't plugged the internet in yet, so that's why it's missing. Just leave it out for right now. We're going to take the drivers that we have from here and move them over. But before I do that, I'm going to plug this into USB 3.0 because that is going to take a lot longer than it should be. I'm going to move my mouse over and we're going to move it into a 3.0 socket. There we go. That's a lot better. Okay, so let's go into the flash drive. That is not the flash drive. I already have a B1 folder in here. The B1 folder has a few things, obviously the drivers, this file that you don't need. Goodbye. And we're going to just copy this B1 folder. I'm going to cut it, actually. And we're going to put it right onto the C drive. And we're going to run it off the C drive. Yeah, that's a lot faster. Oh my, okay. Yeah, 3.2 is so much better. All right, so we're going to load up the drivers first. So we're going to go into drivers. We're going to go and do the motherboard driver first, all the motherboard stuff first, and then the graphic card. We're going to hit extract all. Extract. I'm going to double click on the extracted file. It's going to say can't reach smart screen. That's because I don't have the Ethernet adapter hooked up. It's fine. I already scanned all these. These are all good to go. It's fine. We can just continue on. If you want to plug in the Ethernet adapter, you can at this point. It'll just start downloading stuff and make this a lot longer process. So that's installing. While that's installing, I'm going to go to settings really quickly. And I'm going to just change the date and time because it's in the wrong time zone. It's in Pacific, which we're not. We are in Eastern time. I'm going to sync now. Actually, we don't get to sync now. I'm just going to change it to sync. That's fine. Let that audio driver go. We're not going to sit here and watch the audio driver go. We're just going to move on to the next one. You could go do one at a time. I like to just do a bunch so I don't have to wait on this. Just it's a repetitive process. You just keep rerunning them. With Gigabyte, it's really easy. The installation just does it by itself. You know, you don't have to sit there and stare at it unless you like watching progress bars and you have that kind of time. Then, you know, you're welcome to. Double click, same thing, run it. And just approve it, let it install. Now during this installation, some of these may take a little longer than others. That's fine. But if you want to do like a reboot every time, that's okay too. I recommend you just do one reboot. You don't have to go through hell of rebooting every time, each driver. It's just a lot faster. Here we go. Run. I also have other videos on how to find your motherboard drivers, how to look up your model numbers, etc. on the websites, as well as the BIOSes and stuff like that. If you're interested in that, you can watch the other videos that have like a tutorial on how to do that. How I made this disk, you know, I don't really go over it because I like to have this prepared for stream beforehand, because it does take some extra time to get those. And having it ahead of time just saves a little time. So, all right, let's get that loaded. Let's see if these are going. This one's not needed. We'll tell you if there's something that's not needed or it's not on in the BIOS. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yes. All right, it's installing the LAN driver at this point, so that's the last one. I think. Close this. Let that go. Now, with Gigabyte, it doesn't say that you have to reboot the machine. I'm going to reboot the machine anyway, just because of habit, and it's a little bit better. Windows likes when you reboot things. Plus, I'm going to connect the Ethernet adapter after this, so we can load up all the updates, and patches, get the time correct as well, because that's way wrong. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a just quick reboot, and I'm going to connect the Ethernet adapter while that is rebooting. Hopefully I have enough room. There we go. And connect the internet. Now if you have a password, it would stop at that screen, but we're not doing that because we don't have a password. Bringing it right in. I'm going to go to settings. We're going to double check the time first. So we go over to time, date and time. We're going to resync now since it's on Eastern and get the proper time. There we go. Date and time is correct. What you're going to notice is all this crap came in. It installs automatically when you connect the internet. It's a lot of bloatware. We have a tool for that. We're going to run that shortly. What I'm going to first check is to make sure we have drivers that are all correct. So I'm going to go to Device Manager. Something might be messed up. There's an unknown device, probably a display adapter, yeah. So we need to load the graphic card driver, but I don't like freaking Edge, so we're just going to go around this for right now. Just going to get Chrome. Not that it makes a difference really that much. Do that. There we go. Install Chrome really quick. And we're going to get the better graphic card driver too, so let's do that. Don't sign in, skip for now. Come on. Oh, yes. Come on. All right. Oh, video. I download GeForce, but I forgot that you have to sign in for GeForce, and that's going to be a pain. So we're just going to download the drivers really quickly. RTX 40 series, regular, yes. And it is a 4060 Ti, I think. Yeah, it's 4060 Ti. So just get the driver. Windows 11. Game ready driver is fine for this. Download. Download. There's a studio driver, and then there's also a game driver. And a lot of people ask this same question of what's the difference. The short version of that, the game driver is really supposed to be made for games. The display driver, the studio driver is made for like professional work. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, the game driver I've seen work perfectly fine. I've also seen the studio driver have problems at some point. So it really depends on the graphic card, and it depends on the applications you're using. Most of the time, the game driver is perfectly fine because that's the one that usually they are updating constantly, and you're getting the most current driver that's out there. The other driver, the studio driver, is updated a little less, but it also is tested with more everyday applications. Like if you're using Adobe a lot, you'll want to go the studio route instead. Now, it wants to install GeForce Experience. We're just going to do the graphic card driver for now, just because I don't want to have to log in and do a whole bunch of stuff. But we usually do the experience for most customers. They are coming out, obviously. It says down back here, download the new NVIDIA app beta. We've been testing it. It works, but I hate when it says beta, and I don't want to give a customer a beta driver. So we're going to eliminate that for now. But when it does come out in full version, we will probably be loading that instead of GeForce at that point. The app beta also doesn't require you to log in, which is awesome. I don't know why they need you to log in to get a graphic card driver. That's just stupid. But, you know, they're probably trying to do data harvesting or something. Who knows what they're doing. In the background, if you notice, this is also installing the Windows updates. We'll just let it do its thing in the background while it's doing the graphic card driver. When it installs the graphic card driver, it's going to blink in about a second or two. That's normal. It's going to blink off, blink on. It should lose display for a quick second. That means that it replaced the current driver with the newer driver. And obviously when it does that, you're going to lose video for a second. All right, we're almost done here. That driver, we're going to get the... I usually do the updates first before I run the... see, I could see it installing another display driver back here. There it goes. It's going to blink. That's fine. And it's finished. Okay. I don't know why it decided to load up the one from Microsoft too, but that's all right. We'll let this install. And let me close this. Let me bring this up. Let that install. You know what? Instead of wasting time, we're going to... Usually you should really wait for everything here to install and then do a reboot. And then you should be able to run the bloatware removal tool. We have a bloatware removal tool to get rid of all this garbage. Like if you noticed here, we have installed apps. It installed, you know, Clipchamp, which, you know, maybe not be used. Feedback Hub, you don't need that. You know, mailing calendar, most people don't use. Maps, media player, like some of the, well, media player might be used. Microsoft News, you know, like little things it takes out. Usually there's a lot of stuff in here. Office, it decided to load a crappy version of Office. Xbox Live, Xbox, from all of our businesses, we don't need these, and I don't think you can take them out. Some of them you can. Yeah, you can uninstall them one at a time if you want now. But that's still a lot of work, where if you run our tool, it'll just zap all of these for you. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to open up Windows PowerShell. We still have it in Windows PowerShell. I'm still writing it, rewriting it in .NET. That will be coming soon. when I have a little more time to finally finish it up. But for now, it's a little harder to run, but it's not impossible. I'm going to go to where we downloaded it. Oops, Windows 11 rule tool. And I'm going to type out the directions. I'm pushing tab, that's how I'm getting into autofill. So if you're wondering why, like, it's just auto typing stuff. Then I was copy and paste. We're going to say all, and we're going to run the removal tool and enter, and it's going to do a bunch of stuff in the background. This is normal. It's just removing all the garbage. You could also modify that PS1 file if you want to keep some of those programs. You can do that, but this keeps a lot of the junk away. It's not going to get rid of everything, like Spotify is still in here. That's always annoying. And this Outlook new, which sucks. We can get rid of that. LinkedIn, we can get rid of that. No one needs that. Edge we don't need either, just unpin it. You can't uninstall Edge. Edge is part of the browser, it just needs to be there. I'm going to unpin it though. And we're going to pin this down here for Google Chrome. There we go. And that's it. So it also disables telemetry. It also makes a few different changes. There's some telemetry crap that Microsoft loads. It just disables that, turns it off so that you don't have to worry about it. It's just extra stuff that it's, you know, reading through your system you don't want. The other thing you may want to also set is your privacy settings. So you may want to go to privacy and security and go through all your security settings. I like to turn all this stuff off, this tracking garbage. It's just extra stuff that's going to go over your internet that, you know, you don't really want going over the internet. It's not something that you really need to be giving Microsoft. It's not, you know, diagnostic and feedback is up to you, but we usually turn a lot of this off. We only turn this on if there's something wrong with the system. We will usually do that. If there's something wrong with the system, we need Microsoft's help, we'll turn it on. We're going to turn off all the filtering because it's a business account. They shouldn't be doing anything stupid. Windows Classic, that's fine. Location service is already off, that's fine. Camera should be, you should turn this off. You should leave this on this way. If you are using Zoom, you'll want to leave that on. If you're not using Zoom, just turn it off. There's no reason for it to access the camera. I'm going to leave these on for this just in case they have Zoom because most businesses are using something like that. Notifications, yeah, that's fine. I also change in system. I also go down to notifications in here. Did I pass it? Yes, I did. What I usually do is I change the additional settings. I uncheck these. These are annoying. This will come up with more Windows experiences or try to get you to sign in using a Microsoft account. So if you uncheck those, it'll stop bothering you about that. And yeah, that's all I change really here. I don't really go that crazy. I mean, there's more stuff for like in the security settings that I kind of just go through. I don't know why it's installing this. Let's just install the rest of these. I don't know why it's doing that one only. Sometimes it stops like this for Microsoft updates. You may have to push it again. This is kind of normal, typical. Let's also take a look at the additional, the optional, not optional, we're good. If you want to have your Windows updates automatically go in, you want to check this off. If you want advanced options, you can also check off receive updates from other products that are Microsoft. If you want to keep your Windows up to date all the time, you can check that off. It will reboot your computer during any time that there's an update. So if you do turn these on, it will reboot even if you have a program open, which might be bad for some people. So you may want to leave that off. But if you don't reboot your computer very often, you may want to leave it on just to force a reboot, you know, if you're not good about that. All right, this installs and that's it. After it installs, we do a few more reboots and I think we got all the drivers. So let me just check the device manager. We still got one unknown. That's probably, I didn't reboot yet. That's right, for the graphic card. Graphic card's listed, but there's also one Intel driver that probably needs to be, yeah. There's an Intel system driver that I usually get from Microsoft. That one works perfectly fine. The one from the motherboard manufacturer works okay too. I just found that it keeps getting replaced from the one from Microsoft anyway, so I just leave it there. But that will go away once I reboot. So this is basically it. After this is all done, you load your programs, you load all your other stuff, activate your Windows, of course. You know, to activate your Windows, you go to System, and then go down to Activate Windows, Activation, and you fill out the, you know, you change your product key and put your product key in, obviously. I'm not going to do that here because obviously I don't want to show everybody, you know, their product key. But after you activate, all this stuff goes away, and it'll work perfectly fine. Now, if you don't activate, the system will still run. You'll just have limited features. So what does that mean? I think remote desktop doesn't work, and a few other things don't work. So that's up to you. If you're only using the game, for gaming and stuff, you probably don't need it activated. But that's up to you if you want to do that. I recommend you activate it. That's my answer usually all the time. So, all right, guys. This is about it. At this point, there's really not much more else to go. It's just watching a bunch of progress bars, and I don't want to kill you guys with that. So, but this is a great, great way of building a system. We have other videos also that go kind of in depth about this. We have them in other live streams, as well as we're going to have a few system builds that are just video oriented only. That will probably save you a little more time. We'll have a little more time stamped in this one. So that's about it for now. We'll see you in the next stream. If you guys have any suggestions or anything that you want to see live streamed, please leave a comment on one of the videos, or you can leave it on Twitter. I'm usually on Twitter very often, X, whatever they call it now. Or you can also leave it on Facebook if you're in Facebook. We do check them once in a while. So yeah, we'll see you soon, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.